popular narrative in our culture today is that science and Christianity are in conflict with each other, that the latest advances in science make belief in God unreasonable and render the creation accounts untenable. But is that really the case? I'm joined today by Dr. Ken Keathley, who is a Christian scholar, a professor of theology at Southeastern Baptist Theological Seminary in Wake Forest, to help answer that question. Ken, in a previous episode, we talked about the fact that historically, there really is no evidence whatsoever for conflict between science and Christianity. But today, among evangelicals, there are some who would challenge mainstream scientific ideas. Some Christians would argue that the scientific evidence for the age of the earth is not valid. Others, like me, would say aspects of the evolutionary paradigm, again, are untenable, and of course, in doing so, challenge, again, a mainstream view in biology. And so when we have evangelicals challenging mainstream ideas in science, is that legitimate, and does that in some way contribute to this perception of conflict?
I heard someone liken the evangelical community to an 8-lane highway, of which I can live with the inside 6 lanes. In other words, you have those on the extreme right who are, many ways anti-science. They themselves embrace the conflict metaphor, and they're not necessarily healthy. In fact, I would say it's very counterproductive. On the far left of the spectrum, there are those who capitulate to the prevailing culture and worldview in a way that I feel, in fact, I don't just feel it, I believe it, that they give away things, distinctives of the Christian faith that I think are much more important than they seem to think. And so I think, though, that within the broad middle, that there are ways in which one can engage with the current understanding of science, that we say, okay, what are the essentials of the Christian faith? Creatio ex nihilo, creation is good, it reflects the character and nature of God, it is rational and can be understood, it's contingent. Something has gone dreadfully wrong with the human condition, and this is what we call the fall. So therefore, there was a historical man and woman who the Bible teaches us were Adam and Eve, and those distinctive features we want to hold on to very tightly. And as much as they are compatible with the current findings, okay, we can work with that. And in fact, as you are a very good example, that it's possible to embrace mostly the science overall. But then on those places where there are metaphysical claims, and let's not kid ourselves, Darwinism is not simply a biological theory. When someone wants to argue speciation, okay, I'm open to looking at that. When someone wants to argue about the impact and influence of natural selection, all right, let's look at that. Common descent, okay, now we're making an inference, and I don't know any biologist that doesn't say, yes, it's still an inference. What are some of the implications, as particularly as it pertains to human exceptionalism? And so as a Christian theologian, as an evangelical, I would argue that whatever view that one holds, it has to be one that holds to a distinct understanding of the human person, that human beings were created in the image of God. Whatever model that you have, and there's a variety of models, and I'm very comfortable with yours, one can engage with the sciences there. And I think that one has the right, as an evangelical Christian, to point out to those places where there's more of a metaphysical assumption being made than solid empirical evidence. And that is still true in evolutionary studies, whether it is paleontology, biochemistry, the study of the human genome. There are certain presuppositions at work. They don't rule and reign, but they are having a profound impact. And I think it's proper and right in those places for us as Christians operating from a Christian perspective to push back and say, does the evidence lead us there? And it's okay to challenge it, even if we're going against the consensus. We find that there are times in history that that's paid off very well, especially whenever in the days of the early church, the reigning paradigm was the universe is eternal. And we see where the early church pushed back very strongly and said, no, Genesis teaches in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth. And then we find that eternalism made a resurgence during the Enlightenment. And one finds in the 18th and 19th centuries, up through the 20th century, the idea that the universe is eternal, it was the leading consensus view. It wasn't until the mid-20th century we find where the application of Einstein's theories pointed that the universe had a beginning, and then in the 1960s, the empirical evidence that the universe had a beginning. Now today, the consensus view is Big Bang hypothesis, which is very compatible with theism. So I think that there are times it's okay to say, I know it doesn't fit with the consensus, but we think this is a non-negotiable.